Okay, another 30 seconds, and I will begin. Okay, another 30 seconds. Okay. If you could hear me, Julie, clearly, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Beautiful. Okay, I'm sitting on my porch, and I know there are cars coming by. So I put on earphones, hoping that cancels out some of the background noise. So this could be a pleasant experience for you. Okay. So let's talk about the holiday of Shavuot. For those who are familiar with the holiday of Shavuot, there are many customs on the holiday of Shavuot. Now, first of all, the most important thing on the holiday of Shavuot is not the ice cream or the cheesecake, but rather the reading of the Torah, of the Ten Commandments. This year, not sure how that's going to play out, but it's really a very important part of our Jewish practice, and we have a week and a half to figure out what's going to be, if we're going to have anything on the holiday of Shavuot. Things are easing up at this time, so we'll see. We'll see. We still have a week and a half, as I said, and then we'll decide what we're going to do, if we're going to do anything. But either way, holiday of Shavuot, we read the Ten Commandments. We have dairy foods, cheesecake, ice cream. I don't know if we'll get into discussion of why we have those dairy foods. We do some prayers, typical prayers like every holiday. And then there's also a custom that the first night of Shavuot, which was this year, would be on Thursday night, next Thursday night. The custom is to stay up until dawn. And again, that's not going to be a discussion today of why we do that, or why we do any of these customs. But basically, there are a bunch of customs. There's nothing that is done special on the holiday of Shavuot that is actually a law, Torah law, that this has to be done on the holiday of Shavuot. If we look at any other holiday, Rosh Hashanah, we're told to blow the shofar. Yes, there are many customs on Rosh Hashanah, like going to the water, eating certain kinds of foods, dipped apple in the honey, etc. On Pesach, we have many customs, but we also have the mitzvot. Most important mitzvah on Pesach is eating matzah. On Sukkot, we have the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah. We also have the mitzvah of shaking the lulav and etrog. Of course, there are many other customs that are done on the holiday of Sukkot. On Shavuot, what's interesting is that there are many customs, but there are no special activities or commandments, mitzvot, that we observe on the holiday of Shavuot. Yet, if not for the holiday of Shavuot, we wouldn't have any of the other mitzvot. If not for Shavuot, we wouldn't blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. If not for Shavuot, we would not fast on Yom Kippur. We would not eat matzah on Pesach. Shavuot is the most central holiday in the Jewish year. And today we'll try to understand what is so central about the holiday of Shavuot. And therefore, because it's such a central holiday, we don't have any holiday, any special mitzvah on Shavuot. Yet, if not for the holiday of Shavuot, we wouldn't have any of the other mitzvot the rest of the year. So there are 6 weeks from actually 7 weeks, from when the Jewish people, well, the 6 weeks from when the Jewish people left Egypt until they arrived at Mount Sinai. 7 weeks altogether until they actually received the Torah. And we know the whole purpose of leaving Egypt was in order for us, for the Jewish people, to be able to receive the Torah. But there were many things that happened during this time in the 6 weeks between Passover and the arrival at the desert of Sinai and the receiving of the Torah. The first thing was exactly 1 week after, which is the 7th day of Pesach, is in celebration of the splitting of the Red Sea. During this time, we also ran out of food and the manna began to fall. During this time, traveling in the desert for several weeks, we ran out of water. Water began to flow from a rock. Apparently, they didn't run out of toilet paper, paper towels, because everybody went straight to the stores in Egypt and took them with them, and Egypt was left with none. But manna but food and water, there was nothing left. And so manna began to fall from heaven, and water began to flow from the rock. There was actually 3 special miracles in the desert, each corresponding to the special 3 siblings, Moses, Aaron, and their sister Miriam. The water was in honor of Miriam. Then there was the manna and the clouds that protected them and washed their clothes and kept them healthy, almost like a natural gym. It kept them everything that they needed, a natural laundromat, everything that they needed physically, they were taken care of with the cloud, and then they had the food and the water. During that time, there was also the war, the battle with Amalek. Amalek tried to attack the Jewish people during this time. And it's actually the great miracles, the splitting of the sea and the battle with Amalek, that actually brought Moses' father-in-law, Yitro, close to the Jewish people and made him convert, which is why the Torah portion of the 10 Commandments is actually in the portion of Yitro, because ultimately we were all converts when we accepted the Torah. Okay, so on the first day of the 3rd month, the first month was the month they actually left Egypt. The 2nd month, they're traveling. And the first day of the 3rd month, which is 6 weeks after their exodus from Egypt, they arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. Now, it's actually interesting that when the Jewish people arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai, it says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Har, that the Jewish people encamped neged Har, next to the mountain. Now, Vayichan in Hebrew means, and he camped. The word for and they camped, which would be in Hebrew, the plural, and they camped would actually be Vayachanu. The Torah actually tells us, Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Har, that the Jewish people, it says, and he camped, instead of and they camped, to teach us that on that day when the Jewish people camped next to the mountain, they were all united like one. Yes, it's difficult to imagine every single Jew in the entire world to be united as one, but that's the way it was, and that's the way it will be once again when Mashiach comes. Hopefully, we do our best to make that happen within our own homes, within our own communities, and ultimately, at some point, this is the way it will be once again. So this is some of the events that took place from when the Jewish people left Egypt until they arrived at Mount Sinai. Now, next Sunday on our calendar is the first day of the month of Sivan, the third month. Why the third month? The months in the Jewish calendar do not start from Rosh Hashanah, although the Jewish year starts from Rosh Hashanah. It may be a little confusing for some, but the months actually start from the month of Pesach, from when we went out of Egypt. Rosh Hashanah starts from when we calculate the year from the creation, whereas the months begin from when we left Egypt and when they prepared to leave Egypt. So the day of the actual offering of the Paschal offering was on the 14th day of the month. They ate it the night of the 15th day of the month, of the first month of the year. They arrived on the first day of the month of Sivan, which is the third day of the month, the third month of the Jewish calendar. They arrived at Mount Sinai. And what's interesting is we say, there's written in the Medrash that a people of three, and I may not be saying it correctly because I'm trying to just translate without actually recite the Hebrew of the Medrash, that tells us that a people of three gathered on the third to receive a three. There's a lot of, on the third day, to receive three. So everything was in threes. What was the third day? So the Torah, as you see here on the calendar, the Torah was actually given on the sixth day of Sivan, but it was on the third day after they started to prepare. It's in the third month, on the third day, a people of three, because you have the Kohen, the Levi, and the Israelites. So you have Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, that's three. So you have a people of three. Moses, Aaron, and his sister were also three. There's a lot of threes. And the Torah, which is also, which is comprised ultimately of the written Torah, the prophets, and the writings, is also in a number of three. Three represents chazaka, represents strength, and it's a very powerful number. So we arrive on the first day of the month of Sivan. There's tremendous unity. They are at Mount Sinai, and on the very next day, Moses climbs the mountain, and God informs Moses that he had chosen the Jewish people and offers to give them the Torah. Moses comes down, and he tells the Jewish people that God is offering them Torah, and the Jewish people immediately accept the Torah. The next day, Moses goes up on the third day of Sivan. He climbs back up the mountain, and he relays to God that the Jewish people have consented and they are willing, accepting to receive the Torah, as it says. We'll see this later. We'll talk a little bit about this, that they said, we will do, and then we will listen. They were willing right away to accept. And then Moses comes down, and then God says that he would appear. He tells Moses that he would appear on Mount Sinai, and the Jewish people will hear the Torah through Moses. So God will give Moses the Torah, and Moses will then give it over to the Jewish people. When Moses descends, the Jewish people ask that God himself speak directly to them. Now we know later, when God actually started to speak, it was so powerful, and it was actually too much for the Jewish people. And they said, please, enough. Let Moses give it over, which is what God intended from the very beginning. It was going to be a little too much. The light and the energy and the power of God was so strong that it was too much for the Jewish people to hear. So ultimately, that's what happened. But the Jewish people really wanted to speak, that God should speak to them directly. And Moses, on the 4th of Sivan, he goes up and he relays that to God. And God says, you know what? I'll speak to them directly. They got to start preparing. I need 2 days of preparation. And on the third day, again, number 3, which would be on the 6th of Sivan, I will give them the Torah. 3 days means the balance of the 4th, because in Jewish law, a part of a day is considered a full day. We have that in many different examples. One of them that I'll share, an example of where you have a partial day. Julie just got up from Shiva for her mom. When it comes to Shiva, we talk about Shiva means 7. You sit for 7 days. But in actuality, although Shabbos we don't sit Shiva, but Shabbos is considered a full day as far as the calculation. But if the Shiva, the funeral took place during the day, which usually it does, then that day, even though it's a partial day, is considered a full day of Shiva. Likewise, people get up from Shiva on the morning of the 7th day, which means that if a funeral was on a Friday afternoon, Friday would be counted 1, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is the 7th day. But a partial day is considered a complete day, and therefore Shiva ends in the morning of the 7th day. So you actually only have 5 full days of Shiva. The first and the last are partial days, but in Jewish law that's considered a day. So in the same way, when it came to preparing for Shavuot, so the first day is the balance of the 4th day, the second day is the full day, and then they prepared until the morning of the sixth day, where God actually comes down to the mountain. And the Medrash actually tells us, and this actually answers the reason why we stay up on the first night of Shavuot, why there's a custom to stay up and to study, is the Medrash tells us that the Jewish people went to sleep and that the night before. And when it says it was a very peaceful sleep, there's a lot of spiritual reasons why they went to sleep, but ultimately the Medrash tells us that God was a little disappointed because then he came to give them the prize of history, the greatest gift in history. And they were sleeping. God came to give it to them and they were sleeping. So to make up for it, we stay up and study Torah on the night of Shavuot. Early in the morning, God appears on the mountain. There's flaming fires and thunderous sounds. It says we actually saw the sounds. They were so powerful that we actually saw the sounds and heard the fire. It was just incredible strength. They heard the sounds of the shofar. The shofar was actually the horn from the ram that Abraham used to offer right after the binding of Isaac, when he didn't want to leave without giving an offering to God. So that there were 2 horns. One was used for the shofar at the giving of the Torah, and the other one has been put away. I guess Elijah the prophet knows where it is, and will be used to usher in the coming of Mashiach. And the nations formed ranks around the mountain, because when they heard the noise, they started to run away, and Moses calls them close to the mountain, and God gives them the Torah. So that's just an overview, a quick overview. Hopefully with the slides, you were able to appreciate the timeline and create some kind of context as to what was going on from the time the Jewish people left Egypt until they actually received the Torah, the 6 weeks before, and then from the last final week, from the 1st of Sivan until the 6th of Sivan, you get a picture of what was going on. Let's talk a little bit about the essence of the day, the essence of the holiday, and understand why there are no actual mitzvot which are related to this holiday. But yet, all the other holidays are only because we have the holiday of Shavuot. I'm going to skip this part. It's actually a very interesting concept that the Medrash tells us that all the nations were approached before the Jewish people, and they all argued that they do not want to receive the Torah. They asked what was in it, and for different reasons, they did not want to accept the Torah. But the Jewish people, as it says in the Torah, in Exodus chapter 24, it says, and he took the book of the covenant and read it within the hearing of the people. And they said, all that the Lord spoke, we will do and we will hear. So they immediately, the Jewish people immediately accepted to do and then to hear the Torah. And the question is, why did the Jewish people immediately accept the Torah? What was the calculation? Without knowing exactly what it says, they were going to embrace a commitment that would be binding not only on them, but on their children forever. Now, if someone was going to create restrictions or create laws and give me laws, and I know they're going to be binding on my children and forever, and I'm never going to be able to get out of it, it's going to be a contract that is binding forever. I'm going to first look at it and find out exactly, as the other nations did, find out what's in this contract so that I could make an informed decision, which is, again, going to impact not only myself, but all the future generations. And yet, we find that the Jewish people did not do that. They immediately accept what was being offered. How do we understand that? If you ever walked into a classroom as a child, or any time as an adult, you ever walk into a classroom, which part of you is in that classroom? And the answer is very simple. When you walk into a classroom, hopefully, the part of you that's in the classroom, most important part of you, is the intellectual part of you. Now, of course, a good teacher has to also try to connect to the emotional part of the student. But on an academic level, if you're going into a classroom to study an academic subject, what you really want to bring into the classroom is your intellect. At home, when you're home, you want to, what's really there usually is the emotional part of you. But these are all external parts of us. When we go to work and we're having a meeting, yeah, we put a little emotion, we put a little intellect, but what's really there is the professional part of us. So there are different expressions, different parts of us that find themselves in different places, depending where we are in life. But the essence, our true self, is not really there, is not really expressed in a classroom, not even really expressed even in our family. When does the true expression of my inner self express itself? And usually that happens, the true example that we could give is in marriage. When a couple gets married, what's happening is they're really expressing, in order to have a relationship, they're expressing themselves. It's not so much the emotions, it's not so much the intellect, it's the deep, something that's deeper. Now, what ends up happening is we get stuck on our emotions, we get stuck on our intellect, and then a lot of times it becomes a challenge and it blocks that deeper self. But really, in a marriage, the beauty of marriage and the reason why we celebrate marriage is because what's happening is there is a bond between two people who are willing at that time to be able, and hopefully for a long time, to be able to truly connect from their essence, from their very, very being. And when both parties are able to recognize that this is not about my emotions, it's not about my self, my intellect, those are external things, something that I focus on the other person's intellect, on the other person's emotions and so on. But really what I'm giving to the other person is myself. Whatever it takes. I'm giving my full self. And what am I connecting with? I'm connecting with the other person's full self. And that's the reason for the celebration at a wedding, is that these two halves are coming together and forming one unit of true true self, of where each one is able to connect to the true self of the other. And that's really what happens in the relationship and what happened when the Jewish people came to Mount Sinai. When the Jewish people came to Mount Sinai, the Jewish people recognized that this was going to be a relationship between them and the Almighty. And therefore, what was written, what I have to do later, I often joke, when certain things come up, I often joke that I never signed up for this, which means before I took the job, I never knew this was coming. I never thought about this. I never thought that I would have certain challenges, and I think we could all relate to that. When we have children, there's certain challenges that come up that we never imagined before that these challenges would come up. And the truth is, it doesn't really make a difference. Because when we go into marriage and we take the commitment of having children, we're giving our full selves over. Yes, sometimes there are challenges that come along with it, but it doesn't really matter because there is a connection, there's a bond that is deeper than the emotional self, is deeper than the intellectual self, something that's very, truly, truly deep. And therefore, everything else becomes irrelevant. Now, as we deal with emotions, yes, emotions come out. As we deal with intellect comes up. But our general approach, and which helps us get through every other challenge, is that I'm in it because this is my true self. I'm really able to connect to it. And so when the Jewish people came to Mount Sinai, they came to Mount Sinai and they said to themselves, we're going to accept this because it doesn't really make a difference what challenges we may face in the future. This is about an opportunity to connect with God, which also answers a very interesting question. When we fly on a plane, if you ever fly on the plane, typically the pilot announces, I am your pilot today. Usually talks about him being your pilot. I'm your pilot. Whereas God doesn't talk about you. When he starts the Ten Commandments, he says, I am the Lord, right? Who am I? I. What does I mean? My essence. God gave us an opportunity at Mount Sinai to connect to his essence. And that is what the holiday of Shavuot is all about. It's about an opportunity for us to be able to connect to God's essence. Therefore, because we are connecting to God's essence, we are willing to take on everything immediately without really paying attention to what is written inside the contract, because we understand that this is deeper than the actions that we have to do. It's a very, very deep bond between us and the Almighty. And that answers our earlier question. Why is it that the holiday of Shavuot does not have any special mitzvot? Because mitzvot are expressions of our relationship with God. We shake the lulav, they're actions. Yes, when in a marriage you have to do certain things, but that doesn't taking out the garbage, if that's your job, doesn't define your relationship. Your relationship is much deeper than that. That is just something that you do as part of your relationship. Maybe it enhances the relationship, but that's not the essence of the relationship. Eating matzah expresses our relationship. It enhances our relationship, but that's not the relationship. The relationship is a deep bond that we have with the Almighty. And this holiday of Shavuot is the most important holiday because this is the holiday in which we express our deep bond with the Almighty. And therefore, again, there are no mitzvot associated with the holiday of Shavuot, yet at the same time, it is because of Shavuot that we eat the matzah, that we blow the shofar, and we do all the other holidays throughout the mitzvot of the holidays throughout the year. And when we could think about this and realize it, first of all, it gets us excited because it's hard to get excited for the holiday of Shavuot. What, are you going to get excited for some cheesecake? I just started my diet yesterday. I mean, I'm not starting with cheesecake now, or with cheesecake in a week and a half. I just decided, after 8 weeks in quarantine, I had decided I have to go on a diet, and my diet is no more cheesecake. And now you're telling me I got to eat dairy? But that's not what it's all about. And the truth is, it's really not about the cheesecake, and it's not about the ice cream. It's about the essence, connecting to the essence. And when we realize that, we could truly become excited and prepare for this holiday of Shavuot. And even if, for whatever reason, if we're not able to be together for the holiday of Shavuot and hear the 10 Commandments, we could read them in our own homes. There is Yizkar on the holiday of Shavuot. We're going to celebrate. We are going to provide everyone with some kind of booklet, or some kind of thing for everybody to be able to read the 10 Commandments and celebrate the holiday of Shavuot. But most importantly, we should remember that this is all about our deep connection with the Almighty. I'm going to share my screen again. And this time I'm going to share I'm going to find it 1 second. We're going to watch a part of the weekly video of the Rebbe. And then after that, we will find it. And after that, it covers it up. And then after that, we will recite Tehillim for those who are sick. Oh, I forgot something. Do that again. Gotta make sure the sound works. I've done my sound, and then only find out halfway through that no one hears what's going on. Okay. Let's see if it works. reason. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to my original screen. I usually try to download the video because when I download it, I typically have more success and it flows smoother, but they didn't send me the link this week. My slideshow. Hold on 1 second. Sorry for the.
That was Fabrengen in 1970, Eastern Parkway. In the middle of the Fabrengen, he says,
Okay. Back to this.
something new to tell you.
Moça Frida, mandarinha, fumar bicida.
For the delay, it should be good. Second. Come back in. There we go. Okay. So this is a chapter of Tehillim that we did not this past Friday, but the Friday before, chapter 21. We're going to do a meditation with it, and then we're going to read the chapter. Man, rather we should look at God and so you could translate or for nothing. Okay, I'm back. I hope you could hear me. And to try to, hopefully we could finish off this session smoothly. Back to the meditation. I just said that everything happens by divine, right? We're not in control. So whatever just happened was by divine providence. God is the power. Okay, so the verse is telling us that our help comes directly from God, who is beyond any type of description and is therefore referred to as nothing, who precedes everything and will help us regardless of whether we deserve it or not. Okay, so that's the meditation that we have while we read this prayer. Shir Lama'alot, Esa Inay El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Ezri Me'im Adonai, Osei Shamayim Va'aretz. Al Yitain Lamot Raglecha, Al Yanum Shomrecha. Hine lo Yanum Velo Yishan, Shomei Yisrael. Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilcha, Al Yad Yeminecha. Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka v'yoreach balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzischa v'echa me'ata v'ad olam. In English, a song of ascents. I shall raise my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help is from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to falter. Your guardian will not slumber. Behold, the guardian of Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is your shadow. He is by your right hand. By day the sun will not smite you, nor will the moon at night. The Lord will guard you from all evil. He will guard your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in from now and to eternity. We have in mind all those who need blessings for a speedy recovery. There's a young man that I know very well who's 38 years old, who's been suffering from the coronavirus for about 6-7 weeks. And the doctors are at loss of how to help him. And we pray for him. Chaim Shnerzalman Yehuda, forget his mother's name, and Sarah, that Hashem should bless, that he should get his breathing back and recover from, and be able to go back to his wife and family, and all others who are sick, whether it's as a result of the coronavirus, whether it's emotional, other areas. People are suffering in many different ways today. May Hashem help that they should all be able to recover. And we pray for them and have everyone in mind. If you have someone specific in mind, please do at this time. And may Hashem bless them all. And may we only have healing and goodness. This week is still, we're in the month till this Shabbat. We're in the month of Iyar, which is the month of healing in the Jewish calendar. And so this month we should have healing for all those who need, and may we only have blessings. I thank everybody for joining. I'm going to open up the floor. If anybody has any questions at this time, you could raise your hand, or I'm unmuting everyone. So if anybody has any questions, comments, please feel free.
There's a joke. Can I tell a joke?
Yes, why not? Harley's not here, so why not?
It has to do with the 10 Commandments. When Moses came down with the 10 Commandments, different people asked what's in there. So let's say the French people said, thou shalt not want your neighbor's wife. Oh no, I don't want that. And then the Italians said, it says, thou shalt not kill. Oh no, I don't want that. So then they asked the Jews, they said, well, how much does it cost? Nothing, I'll take them both.
Very good. Only Jewish people could tell that joke. Very good. You know, the lady who comes to the post office, she wants to send a Bible to her daughter. So she has it all packaged up and she wraps it up. It's all ready to go. And the clerk in the post office says, is there anything perishable inside? She says, I don't think so. Actually, there's one thing. It's the 10 Commandments. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, so we should every year we get the 10 Commandments from fresh and new, and Hashem should bless this year. We should get the greatest revelation of Mashiach and receive the Torah once again. I want to encourage you to join us on Wednesday night for our next class. Thank you very much for joining today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
All the
You
best.
too.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you
joining.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Hi,
All the best.
Sherry.
Hi,
Take
Julie.
Take care, Sherry. Are you with your mom, Sherry?
I was with my mom when we started, but she's now in her
Oh.
room.
Okay, well, great to hear your voice, Sherry.
There's no chance of seeing the Rebbe's message. There's no chance.
I could send a link. Okay.
Okay, please. That would
That
be
was
right.
good.
Did you?
1980.
Yeah,
Did
I'll
you
send
send
the
the
link
link?
to
Please.
those who are on. Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Please.
Yes, absolutely.
See
Okay.
you
All the
Wednesday.
best. Yes, God willing. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Be well.
Please.
Bye bye.